Thank you all for coming again. This is sort of a continuation of last week's discussion, where we had started to talk about the roles, differentiating different roles in BDSM and terminology and the real dichotomy, the back and forth between the utility of having a common set of terms that everybody sort of understands and everybody uses the same way, versus using those terms, the utility of that versus the limiting nature of using terms like that when describing yourself or others, because it can sort of pigeonhole people in ways that does not accurately describe or reflect the complexity of their sexuality and their identity and things like that. And our discussion last week sort of took off in in a couple different directions, which is exactly what we want. You know, talking about what's important to us, sort of following different questions down the rabbit holes. You know, we're not, this is free-form discussion. I sort of picked this topic as a jumping off point. And I'm not absolutely positive what we covered entirely last week. But there were a couple things. I know we talked a little bit about the difference between a top and a bottom and a dom and a sub. And discussion tracker is up. If you have a comment or a question, please jump in with a C or a Q. I wanted to start today's discussion with something that is fairly common in both SL, BDSM circles, and real-life ones, which is the sub-slave, pet, property, baby girl differentiation and sort of the Venn diagram of their crossovers. Because there's a lot of, especially among people new to the community, and this is often true of both DOMs and subs, who will say to a sub who is sort of feeling his or her way through the nature of their sexuality and kink and things like that, oh, you're not really a slave because blank, or that isn't a baby girl thing. And that bothers me for two reasons. One is most of those terms are fuzzy enough and are sort of a big enough tent to encompass a lot of behaviors and orientations. And also because it's not really for someone else to define for you. And I think it's very common, especially in sort of competitive sort of circles, that comes up. And another thing we touched on last week is you may identify one way and think of yourself one way and absolutely be that. You may be a slave. And you get into a new relationship with someone who is an owner, and you find yourself, the manifestation of your sexuality altering because you're with a different partner. This is true of DOMs as well. I am at my core a daddy. I'm a daddy dom. Sort of that aspect has always been a part of my sexuality. But for some partners, I am more an owner. Especially if an owner is a deep masochist, my sadistic tendencies get encouraged. I am, and most people are not a one-trick pony, even with the one partner. First question I'm going to throw out is, what have your experiences been with how your identity and your title, how you label yourself, how you think about yourself, not even how you identify yourself to other people, but how have you seen that change between different partners? And have you felt that, that sort of morphing and evolution, or even as simple as concentrating on the parts of your relationship with a current partner that engender deeper feelings to one facet of your submission or dominance that it doesn't with another? Tell me I had my mic on this whole time.
Yeah, you're coming in clear.
Oh, thank you, Jesus. Okay. So does that feel familiar to anyone? Is that...
I can only speak for myself, but I feel definitely like I fall between different categories, and it's very, very tough, and it makes it very hard when you're trying to meet people or talk with prospective dominants, because how do you label yourself? Right. I'm not one thing, I'm not the other.
And it's everyone's sexuality is complex, and it's really hard to give the soundbite version of who you are. I mean, it's like, it's the reason why so many people's, sort of about me's in their SL profiles are sort of copied and pasted from other people. It's hard to talk about yourself. And it's certainly hard to talk about yourself sort of objectively enough and honestly enough to give sort of a healthy presentation of yourself without it. It's very uncomfortable to do that too. So even if you know yourself really well, it's certainly not easy. And once you start getting into things like, without getting into the weeds about it, but just, saying, like, I'm a dominant, and in my case, I'm a dominant, and I'm a daddy, and that gives one sort of slice of me and an important part, and then, I enjoy play that would make the devil himself, safe word out, is another part, and it is, it's hard to do, to sort of get those things out in a rational, sort of reasonable way. So I absolutely understand what you mean by that. Grumpy, please, comment.
Thank you. I understand that words have important meaning, each of them, and if you understand the words, you can understand the meaning. And my understanding of a master, all right, I take this application in the real world and stuff, is someone that is efficient or, has perfected his trait or his skill or something like that. That's a master, something he's really good at this, saying, you know, I'm a craftsman, you know, marksman or something like that. But if it comes to this kind of BDSM thing like that, a master would be good at ropes. I'm really good at tying ropes, and I'm a master at maybe chains or knots or whatever, you know, your specific quality is, you know. That's what I assume a master is. That's my perception of it. So when I hear someone call a master, they have a teacher or an apprentice or something like that, you know. So I try to be careful on what the words I choose, especially when you're trying to describe someone or somebody else, because I really don't know as far as other people are. I just project them as that how they want to be perceived, you know. So it's really important to me as far as the words go, as what the meaning is. And some of them just throw around the words like it has none, and that confuses me. Done.
And that is exactly why we are having this conversation, because master is a perfect example of a word that means wildly different things to different people. You have a perfect definition for sort of a non-kink definition of master. I mean, you show mastery over something, over an ability, a skill, a trait, a job, and that has crept into the BDSM world, but not every, you know, I was going to say not everyone agrees on it. Nobody agrees on this stuff, you know. The classic one is the difference between submissive and slave, as if they were two different terms and didn't have huge overlap. You know, the difference between dominant and master. Yeah, that is so incredibly personal that often you will get what people mean by it from context and experience. That's a terrible way to do that. You know, and then you run into the, you know, a master wouldn't do that, or, you know, that isn't what a partner expects from you after you have used a term like that. So it's incredibly slippery. Okay, I'm not quite sure the order these happened in. Cryptic had a comment. Sure thing. And while we're at it, while you're doing that, I will read Vixen's. In the past, I've been submissive in SL and in general in person, but I'm involved with a guy who is rather, I would say he's a lot like me. He's shy and nervous, but kinky. So I feel myself more forward and dominant as a result, though still nervous about doing it properly. So luckily, I haven't defined myself as either a sub or a dom, but switch because I knew it was lurking somewhere. And that is a perfect way to sort of approach that. And dive back into that when she gets back. Cryptic. The labels are a good jumping off point for a discussion about what you like or don't like or will and won't do. As a pet, it's not about what I like or will or won't do. It's more about, tell me what you like about being a pet and want from me as your pet owner, which I've done a lot lately, and then I get to ask, so what would you want with someone who defines themselves as a pet? In the biggest sense, they say, wow, what is a pet? And I get to tell them what it is for me. Some people would hear pet and say, no, I want a baby girl or slave. It's like an overview, but what I like with one, I might not like with another. The key is to take any label and use it as a starting point for a discussion of what one expects and likes. See, that is perfect. That is exactly the kind of healthy approach to the uncertainty of the labels that turns it into a positive. The fact that the definitions are fuzzy and uh, and mean different things for different people. You're absolutely right. Is a perfect place to dive in and start exploring what it means to each other, whether that implies a compatibility. So yes, that is exactly exploring with each other what it means to both of you together, and that is phenomenal. Okay, Feisty had a comment. Let me read that. For myself, I cannot identify myself singularly as one or the other. For me, it depends on a lot on where my mindset is at the current moment. Sometimes I tend to feel more into a baby girl mentality, but sometimes the darker corners of my mind are awakened in a big way. So sometimes my mindset falls more into a slave mindset. Other times, overly playful and bratty. Right. That is exactly what makes our sexuality complex. Is even with the same partner, we go through a range of things. I mean, if I, it depends on your mood. It depends on your relationship with your partner. It depends on how you are feeling in the moment, what you need in the moment, and also, there, as I said, I'm mostly a daddy. There are days, especially if I am sick or I am tired, where I sort of most self-identify as a monster. I mean, it's not, the sort of no more Mr. Nice Guy. And I have to be very careful at those times, and it's important that my partner be aware of that about me. That's fantastic. Welcome back. So we read your comment, Vixen, and and what you were describing is a great example of one's sexuality or one's kink growing or expanding or changing or evolving to meet a partner and a partner's needs and expectations and desires, and even just the place where you click best together. I mean, if this is especially true of people who are who have one or two really strong fetishes that they desperately need to be met as part of their sexuality. Often, if you are a flexible partner, that need will bring the corresponding desire to the fore. So your partner, your current partner, being a little hesitant and a little shy, brings forward your dominance is one word for it, sure, but also simply your ability to guide. And that in meeting both your needs is a very healthy response. Okay. Okay, did anyone else have any questions? Comments, concerns? You're welcome. Thank you for sort of sharing something very personal. So I wanted to jump in a little and get other people's opinions about sub-slave, baby girl, pet, property. And the way I see it played out most of the time is, or the way sort of it seems to me, and please disagree because, as I said before, I am so not an expert on this. I have opinions. I have a lot of experience. I am not the universal. I am not the oracle, sort of putting forth truths here. Okay. Grumpy. Sorry.
Thank you. I know about these titles and stuff. I try not to take too much pause into it because it's just, it could be confusing to me. I don't know really. Personally, it's not for me as to how people and what they say to describe themselves. It's more as how they act and what they do, as I perceive them as someone, for example, a master. If they call themselves a master, but they don't have any skills or they're just playing around, then I don't see them as a master, but they want to be called that. So I don't know. I got different opinions on that. Same way with a baby girl who's just always mean and just, grumpy or whatnot. Or like with a pet who doesn't act like a pet, How are you supposed to describe that person if that's not how you perceive them? And, if they want to be perceived like that, are you just supposed to play along? Like, that's, well, okay, all right, well, that's how they are. I want to be perceived. I guess that's how it is. But really, I take it more as not what they say, but what they do and how they act. And I just take it with everybody, and I take it for myself, too. I try to see the world in that light. Done.
Yeah. And I think there's a real friction point where, not just between how people describe themselves and how people act, but a lot of people are not terribly insightful or not necessarily wonderful at introspection. So how they see themselves or want to see themselves isn't really necessarily the truth on the ground, and that people have certainly had that experience with, partners or friends or whatever. It's incredibly common in SL with guys who say they are dominants and really are just kind of abusive assholes hoping to get laid. Next comment is names about being a baby girl. Oh, you have started this. Okay, you were typing. You were typing it, and I'll wait for the rest of it. Okay. Cryptic has a comment as well. So, yeah. Okay. Why is it a lot of baby girls use the title baby girl to act selfish in a relationship, and only about them is what a baby girl is, or a one person? That's why they use baby girl as a reason to have a one-sided relationship. I've certainly seen that. It has been my experience that some baby girls can't differentiate between childlike and childish. Twisted has a great point. Let me read it. Because Second Life is a free-for-all, and most baby girls, like most masters, don't have to fix their issues or actually be what they claim to be, because it's like an all-you-can-eat buffet. When it doesn't work out with one, they simply bounce off and find another one instead of fixing the issues or realizing they are fucked up. I think that's absolutely true. I mean, one of the problems with, and Bijou was saying that a huge trend in SL is to say you're a baby girl to get a sugar daddy. I think that there's a phrase that I don't think is particularly popular here. That was popular when I was a young larval dom, which was "do me, queens," which is the which is the which is the I am the, it's often a baby girl, but I am the partner, everything is about me, I don't put any effort into the relationship. That screaming, by the way, you hear in the background is not my current victim, that's my toddler, so I apologize. My victim is thoroughly muzzled and doesn't make any noise. And that's and there's a real, that trend is very true, that there are these people who are selfish partners. I think it's common in certain flavors of baby girl. Lord knows it's common among doms. And it's particularly ugly in Second Life because there are so many potential submissive partners for any given dom. That doms can get away with really bad behavior because they know the repercussions aren't that bad. They, if they don't emotionally invest in a relationship, if they are jerks, there's always the next one. And it's horrible. I mean, there are, and one of the problems is the anonymity of Second Life, which is, in a real life community, these communities, even in big cities, are often very small. And, if you're an asshole and a playa, the the new subs get warned by, the older subs who have seen you in action and are like, all right, stay away from this asshole. Yeah, exactly. Word gets around. And what am I being thanked for? You're welcome, whatever it was. Yeah, that is crazy making. Oh, you're welcome. So yeah, that is definitely a recurring problem. Comment. Am I missing anyone's comment? Yes, I have a tracker. No, I'm not very good at using it. Cryptic, did you have another comment? Is that great? Cryptic said, for any of these, if someone says, I'm an XYZ, then the Dom gets to say, so what do you expect from me? Or what do you like about being a baby girl? What do you like to do as a baby girl? If they can't say, it'll be tricky. That means you have to try some scenarios to see what you might want to do to express that. They just like the name, that will be tricky stuff, and you're absolutely right. And a place where that comes up, where it's not manipulative or it's not mislabeling is relatively new submissives who are new to the lifestyle, especially since there are so many flavors of baby girl and SL and how common it is, who are attracted to it. They feel a pull to baby girlness as they see it and how as they see the surface interactions with doms, but they don't know anything about it. And they don't know what they mean by it. They may very well be baby girls at heart, but they don't have the experience to express it, or even really knowing what it means. And that's okay. I mean, that comes with experience, and often painful experience. And it is really hard for new subs to find a dominant who can guide them. And to help them explore that. It can get especially complicated when they end up with a relatively new dom who doesn't really understand his side of the street or her side of the street, much less the other person's role. So, in the differentiation between them, I think of submissive as a very general term. It means specific things to different people, but I think of a submissive as someone who is on the other side of a power exchange from a dominant, and I think of a dominant as another fairly generic term. Grouped in with that term are things like baby girl, pet, slave, and Cryptic asked dominant as a leader. A great way to think of it as is someone who, either in play or more generally in the relationship, is the one making the majority of the decisions. Hopefully not in a vacuum with the input from the partner, but see, I think of both He-Man and She-Ra both as doms. They're the leaders of the team, they make the decisions, we'll go do this. That's, Man-at-Arms, total bottom. Total doomy queen. Fair enough. If Xena and Gabby weren't even every lesbian relationship model, I don't know what is. Oh, give me one moment, please. There is something quite funny I want to link to the group. Tarzan is brilliant. I thought that was worth a truckle. So y'all enjoy that. Or not. So, I think of the role of a slave as someone who has given up more of the decision-making and power in the power exchange in a relationship with the dominant. And it's sort of a question of degrees, because, you know, you can be a 24/7 TPE sub, and, you know, you can be a slave and not, you know, still have input into the relationship and things like that. So I think those terms are very slippery, as I've said before. Okay, any other questions, comments? I've sort of covered a lot of what I had intended to. Yeah, unfortunately, there are a lot, and they do differ from source to source. Sorry, the question was, and an excellent one from Cryptic is there a reference for these terms? Or do we all make it up as we go along? There are plenty of references, none of whom, of course, agree, except in the most general senses. It's funny, but for a lot of them, Wikipedia can be surprisingly good, as long as they're not real complex terms, real specific. But I would heartily suggest searching for definitions among kink blogs, and find ones that feel like they fit you really well. Feisty said, there's always the eeny, meeny, miny. Oh yeah, Reddit's /kink group is quite good for that, actually. There's always the eeny, meeny, miny, mo method. I mean, for those icky wannabe types that might use that to decide what title they call themselves daily. Unfortunately, that's true. Or they double up. You see it with new DOMs a lot. It's Sir, Master. Dark is almost always in there. Sir, Master, Dark Lord, Fluffy Bunny, or whatever their name is. And Vixen's typing a comment. Yeah, there are a lot of those, and they're ridiculous. It's sort of like you can spot the new DOMs in Arrow clubs because they're dressed like leather ninjas. You know, I'm too old and lazy for that. I have a saying that you know, dominance has very little about how you look. You know, I'm just as dominant in black leather and in a, you know, shorts and flip-flops and a t-shirt that says I'm with stupid, that has an arrow pointing at my own crotch. Oh yes, Vixen has I found a BDSM test thing that which then works out rough percentages of the type you're supposed to be, and that kind of thing is yeah, sure, pink tutu, I'll wear that. What the hell? Yes, it doesn't define the types all that well, but it is a perfectly good jumping off spot. I think it's called bdmtest.com, something like that. Twisted said, I used to think I was a switch even before I really dove into the lifestyle. I still think I am part switch, but I'm also still trying to figure out who and what I am. I do know there are many parts of me that I enjoy expressing, and I am a kinky fucking bitch, but I'm not sure how I would define myself even at this moment. And yeah, that is absolutely true. That is, on any given day, I have, daddy's the easy part, but the rest of it for me gets, sit back and relax because this is going to take a while. Yeah, it's bdsmtest.org, I think. Yes, Cryptic said, but that is the fun explaining what you love or hate. And that is perfect. That is that is the healthy approach. Yes, belt buckles and tom hats are a very important part of the uniform. It's very important to look the part. So I think we've covered most of what I had planned for this one. Any other concerns, questions, comments? I think we've devolved into Skittle craving. Or gummy bears, sure. No glitter bombs. Glitter bombs are verboten. I think we are done. Anybody have anything else?